Lesson 33. There is only God, and you are that. Beloved and holy friends, as always I come forth to abide with you because you have asked. As always I come forth to abide with you because in truth there is nowhere else that I could be. For where you are I am, and where I am you are. We abide then as one mind birthed from the very heart of Abba or God. There is nothing outside of us, and from within there is nothing hidden. Though the dimensions of creation are infinite, they abide within the mind or the field of consciousness that we share as one. The simple truth, because this is true, and I assure you that this is, there is only one task that must be accomplished, one realization that must be realized, one reality to be expressed and lived. The simple truth is that there is only one, that there is only heaven, there is only love, and that there is only the perfect peace that passes all understanding that keeps your hearts in mind. For your heart or your soul, that which is all that you have experienced throughout the multitude of your lifetimes upon this teeny planet, all of the experiences that you have garnered since before the beginning of time, throughout all of the multitude of dimensions, resides within the mind of God, within the mind of Christ, for these are one and the same. Therefore, beloved friends, know always that the only truth that must be lived, as you enter into the firm commitment of choice to abide in the way of knowing, is simply that there is only one thing. You are that one. Your brother and your sister are that one. And though bodies come and go, though times seem to arise and pass away, though the dance of relationships, of career, of weather patterns seems to come and go, it is only the unenlightened mind that looks for great signs in these things. In truth, within the field of your soul, within the entire field of experience that you call to yourself, the same gift is being offered. The gift is offered to you that by grace you might decide to see that the world of ever-changing form means nothing. The world means nothing. It does not, nor has it ever existed except in the perception conjured up within the field of mind that seems to be particularly related to your soul. Now even that is a bit of an illusion. But the point is simply this. In the way of knowing, there is a quiet decision to accept the truth that is true always, to surrender, to open the palms of the hands and release the tight grip upon the value, the meaning, and the rightness of the perception you have made to veil reality. You are that reality. All things are that reality. The forms that a physical eye show you arise and pass away, yet in each moment mind remains perfectly clear, perfectly one. Only the spell of the mind that believes itself to be the body creates suffering, creates doubt, creates illusion. Wherever you are then, in this very moment, you can only be where in truth I am. Wherever I seem to be in this moment, I can only be where you are. For indeed, in the way of knowing, what must come to be realized is the mistaken perception that there is, or has ever been, a separate I that is localized where the body-mind is. To release this illusion is to see that all things are simply one thing. They appear in different forms, automobiles, plants, trees, clouds, thoughts arising and passing away, but they are but one thing. Because an enlightened mind no longer sees the veil of the false eye standing between itself as a filter and its recognition of its union with, its identity with, all things arising and passing away, such a mind looks out upon a transfigured world, a world in which the veil has been lifted. And that mind sees only itself. It sees the very thing it had been judging as imperfect, as it looked out upon the world that had been judging through fear, that had been judging through self-doubt, that those very things of themselves are perfect, and they are indeed the kingdom of heaven. This is why the distance between where you are and where I am indeed is a distance that cannot be measured, for in reality there is no gap. In reality separation does not exist. In reality, your fall from grace and your movement into unenlightened itself has been but an illusion. The very life that you have been living is absolutely perfect. The life you are living now is absolutely perfect, and it has nothing to do at all with where the body-mind goes. It has nothing to do with whether you watch a movie or read a book, whether you make money or do not, whether the body-mind lives or dies. The life you have been living is the life of awareness, of consciousness, of perfect freedom, to create whatever perception you choose to hold. Yes, you are free then in all moments to see that what has been arising as the life of your very self is the life and mind of God. A mind so awakened looks out and sees that there are no problems. Such a mind looks out upon the world and sees no reason to change it, For it is now looking at a world that has already been healed, already been transfigured, already, through alchemical fires, been purified and made whole again. For in reality it sees that wholeness was never once lost. The dream of separation occurs within a space of mind that is nowhere, which holds no value and no purpose. Fear, then, has no power over you. Death has no power over you. You abide in the only place ever created for you. You are not localized to a body or a particular personality that you have associated with your I. That in itself is part of the spell, or the drama, or the dream of separation. In the way of knowing, there is a simple and quiet decision to behold that as the body-mind plays itself out, as the coming and going of all forms around you and within you, as your own unique perceptual field changes and dances, ebbs and flows, as all of these things that seem to be within you in your private world. And that is a bit of a misnomer. And in your external world, that you think is yours and not someone else's, all these things are innocent and harmless. They hold no power. There is no reality in them. Yet they are reality itself, when seen through eyes that are not identified with the false I with localized sense of identity. Even the body-mind that you once called yourself is merely seen to arise and pass away in the vast expanse of your true self, the self that is shared by all beings in all dimensions, always. It was this understanding that allowed me to simply choose to give myself over to what was called a crucifixion. An enlightened consciousness knows that loss is impossible. An enlightened consciousness knows that gain is also impossible. Yet an enlightened consciousness, resting in the certainty of perfect knowing, merely abides in reality. That means there is no resistance to the coming and going of the body, no resistance to the grand display of energies that make up what you call your world. Governments rise and fall, or a new model automobile is unveiled to the flash of 1,000 camera bulbs. Some minds take it as being a various serious things, some do not even notice. And all of it is you. All of it is arising in the vast expanse of the perfectly free mind that belongs to no one, and yet in which all one arise. An enlightened mind, then, whether it is experiencing sadness, joy, anger, guilt, hurt, ecstasy, love-making, a piece of fruit, or cold wind on a skin temporarily in the body-mind, merely allows all these things without resistance to be exactly what they are, while that mind perceives and knows them to be harmless, vast, eternal, radiating the light that God is. As we near the end of the study of the way of knowing, the truth must be told ever more simply and ever more simply. There is only reality, the reality I have called God, that one is one with me, and I am that one, that one is one with you, and you are that one. In the end, then, what seems to be radical to the world caught in the spell of a small self, seemingly playing its drama out through the field of many, many body minds, the truth does indeed become radical. The truth is that all that arises and passes away is indeed God, and there is only God. There can only be God, and you are that one. For in the end, even the creative teaching device of God and child, creator and created, begins to slip away, as duality becomes the one, as illusion, the last traces of illusion, finally give way to truth. All things that arise and pass away are perfectly okay. All opportunities to experience the awareness of love's presence are okay. Every opportunity to experience the contraction of fear is okay, for these things arise only in the field of the perfectly free mind of God that you are. So in the end, it is not so much about cutting out certain experiences and having only certain ones that you have decided to hold value. It is rather to see that all such experiences are transitory. A moment of ecstasy or a moment of sadness is one and the same. For the enlightened mind, there is only that vast expanse that allows all things. And when nothing is any longer unacceptable to you in the field of what seems to be your own unique, particular experience, you will know that you are home. Things arise and pass away, and you remain. Beloved friends, I am indeed that one that birthed Christ. I am indeed that one that walked this earth as a man and manifested the fullness of myself, to reveal myself to myself. You are that one that birthed Jeshua ben Joseph. You are that one that set in motion the great drama of the dream of separation and its correction. You are indeed that one which alone exists unchanging, unchangeable, and unchanged forever. And yet when the mind has been under the spell of thoroughly believing it is separate body-mind, and that the body is the source of the spell that creates the illusion of localized, separate self, a soul that has no connection to anyone else or anything else, it has forgotten the truth. In the field of the body-mind, if I were to have come to you 3, 4, 5, 10, or 2,000 years ago and said, "You are alone that one. You are God, and only God exists," your fear, already present, would have been heightened, and so I came to you in the guise of a man known as Joshua ben Joseph. I played out a perfectly clear drama, like so many body-minds. I allowed myself to be perceived as a unique individual, since you believe that unique individuals exist. You saw me as separate from you, so I appeared in the way that you could see me and understand me. And I have gone on without ceasing to appear in ways that you can see me and understand me, to speak in languages and words, metaphors and parables, teaching tools that you could receive without increasing your illusion of fear. Even the appearance of myself as Joshua ben Joseph was but a teaching device, a temporary teaching tool. All teaching and communication devices have one simple goal: to reduce fear so that particular mind can release its grip on itself and surrender the illusion of separation, and thereby be bathed in the light of reality yet again, seeing that God is what I am. I am God, you are God, only that one exists, only the I that we share as the one exists. I appear as every blade of grass. I appear as every thought. I appear as every desire. I appear as every cloud in the sky. I appear as you. You are that one that I am. I am speaking to you, and yet you are speaking to you. You hear me, but you hear only yourself. Understand well, then, that I, as Joshua ben Joseph, am but the appearance of God in a particular form, so that you could come closer to the truth of your nature without recoiling in fear. It is indeed, said the Bible, that no man looks upon the face of God and lives. That statement means simply that the mind that is not yet enlightened, therefore living in fear, living in the perception of itself, being separate from God, cannot look upon the face of God, the reality of God, and live. It was not a fearful statement at all. It was simply the truth. For when the mind looks and beholds, there is only God, and I am that one. The false self has indeed died. Where did it go? Nowhere, because it never existed in the first place. The decision that closes the gap, that which closes the gap, though it may be said to you in many forms, is the decision to give up seeking and acknowledges that you have found. All teaching devices, all forms of language that I have brought forth have been by design to woo you, to seduce you, to calm you into knowing that you are God. The final gap, then, indeed the final step, is taken by me. And that final step taken by me is the final step taken by you. For that final step into the fullness of enlightenment can only be God recognizing that only God is. And you are that one. Where else could we come to be in a series of lessons entitled The Way of Knowing? It was never intended to be a set of lessons that will someday get you there, but rather the very way of knowing to walk the journey of creation, knowing that it is God doing the walking, and to walk in the knowingness that all things that arise here are in God, and you are that one, and to finally be willing to look at a tree and know that the eye of God has seen you, and the tree of God is being eyed by God. You are indeed the one, infinite, eternal, unbounded, so intimately linked with every one of your brothers and sisters that there is no such separation, nor anything to fear. And there is yet this infinitely magical process in which the mind is realized within a body-mind. That is, you can be perfectly enlightened now by simply seeing the truth that the thought you have held of yourself has never been true. It was only a temporary spell, God forgetting, God playing to be other than God. And yet that play is the very fullness of God. For in the end, the fall from grace, the separation from union, the very thing itself cannot be outside the mind of God. All that your eyes show you is innocent and free. All that the mind can conjure up as thought is innocent and free. You are free to be that one who has the mind of Christ, which is God, and shows up in the transfigured body-mind. Where once there was a false sense of I, now there is only the free, unobstructed field of awareness of God observing creation through His creation. God observing His creation through His creation. Imagine, then, that you are indeed the one, and you chose to pick up that particular body-mind that everyone thought was called Fred or Nancy or Harry or what have you. You put on the body-mind for the simple enjoyment of looking out through it to observe what creation is like from that perspective. Not unlike one who would go to a costume ball, puts on a certain costume just to play at being Louis XIV or Lady Godiva or Mother Mary, if you want to be very radical, Jesus of Nazareth. You have already put on all these costumes. You are the creator of all these costumes. You are God. There is only God. There can only be God. And as you read the words which produce insights and pictures that are flowing through the field of the mind, the you who is reading and the I who is speaking are all one thing, God. Fear not, beloved friends, fear not the coming and going of the life of the body-mind, for that life in itself is already perfectly unobstructed and free. It cannot hinder the truth of who you are when you choose to see from the truth of what you are. As we begin to conclude this study of the way of knowing, dare to live the impossible dream. Dare to begin to see that you are God, perceiving, looking out upon God's creation, and God's creation is only God. Yes, in the end, you can even say that God has created nothing, for nothing can be outside of what God is. I have given unto you many clues throughout these lessons. I have told you that if God forgot to think about you for one moment, you would cease to be. Think about what that must mean. It must mean that you are inhering so much in God that a simple thought in the mind of God either creates you or destroys you. In a flash of an eye, you are either in existence or you are not. Yet what could be in existence but the will of God? If you exist, you must be in the mind of God, that perfect power by which all things arise and pass away. God's creation occurs nowhere. That is, it has no location. The planet Earth, the bodies that inhabit it, the physical universe in which the planet Earth is spinning about, all of these things are not at all unlike that you experience when you close your eyes and imagine having ice cream. You create the image. You have the experience. You see yourself giving the cashier your money. You eat the ice cream. You see yourself smile. You can feel it move down into your belly. Where did all of it exist? Could anybody find it outside the power of consciousness to create? No. You are like the ice cream in the mind of God. God sees itself appearing as you, doing exactly what you are doing in each and every moment. If God, for one split second, dropped the thought of you, you would entirely disappear. And all of those beings around you who you think are different people would instantly have no recollection of you whatsoever. Realizing all power in heaven and earth resides within you. There can only be God. You are God's dream. You are God's creation. You are God's child, in the sense that you are God shaping herself into a temporary expression of herself. And for what purpose? To simply extend creation. You are that one. All power in heaven and earth resides within you. When you bend to pick up a glass, God is embracing God. And if God were not choosing that in that moment, you would cease to be. Even the body would vanish from view. As Jeshua ben Joseph, then, I have appeared to you to be your brother and friend, because you have believed that you needed someone to be a brother and friend, who will let you know that you are safe, so that you can give yourself permission to nod your head, yes, and say, I can accept that now. Thank you for being here, Jeshua. Yet in truth, you are God merely playing out that field of relationship, the quality of experience it seems to require an elder brother who has gone through quite a change and now has the voice of authority. But I have no voice unless you give it to me, and what can give such authority if not the mind of God? For it takes one to know one. You have heard me say that many, many times. It can only be the Christ mind in you that could perceive the Christ mind in Jeshua ben Joseph, and the Christ mind is the extension of God's perfect being into and as creation. When you look lovingly upon anyone, you are God, for God is but love. You have also heard me say many times, love is the essence of what you are. If God is love, and love is the essence of what you are, this can only mean that the essence of you is God. Right here, right now, with not one thing that must be done to earn it, to shape it, or to get it. That is why no form of technique brings the Son to the Father. This is why I once said in the Jeshua letters that no prayer or supplication brings the Son to the Father, but only the release of illusion. And that illusion, when you have peeled it all down in the way you have insisted on peeling it down, is to come to see that the notion you have held of yourself, as having a separate existence, being a separate I, has been false. It is a smokescreen, a guise, a veil, your perception or belief, and that is what you were, as opposed to being everything else, is the illusion that must be released. Choosing to decree that only God exists. In the way of knowing, what I am offering you as indeed your Creator, and the essence of all that you are, is the opportunity to choose this context to decree that only God exists. To choose that the very body, mind, and the self you once thought you were is now embodied, inhabited by the Creator itself. That when the hand moves to pick up the glass, it is no longer I, but God. It is no longer me as a separate struggling being, but God who moves the hand. It is God who is aging the hand, and God who is aging of the hand. All things can only be that which I am. I am one and singular and whole. The Creator said, "You should have no other gods before me, no other thoughts or illusions before me, not even a sense of an I going to God." Then there is only God, and reality has descended to make its home in the field of awareness where once you thought there was something else. We created the way of the heart to begin to speak in such a way to you that would not elicit fear, to which you could nod your head and say, "Yes, yes, that sounds true to me, I'll accept this." Then we spoke to you the way of transformation, where you perceived yourself as one in need of transformation. Again you nodded your heads and said, "We'll accept this, yes. I am still in need of transformation. I'll buy into this in the context in which I receive more of the truth about myself." And now in the way of knowing, we begin to bring you in full force into that which you have chosen to bring yourself, to stand at the doorway of the temple of heaven, to begin to open it, to let the golden light stream out. As you look into that sanctuary to see, it is yourself upon the throne. This is why I have also said that self-love, the simplicity of self-love, is that doorway that brings about the release of illusion. This does not mean that you just hang out in a state of consciousness that says, "Well, I'm really kind of a weak being, but I accept and love myself." That is a good beginning, but eventually you must say, "I am God, and I love myself. I am that one abiding as the leaf that falls from the tree. I am indeed the one that shudders against the cold of a winter storm. I am indeed the one that is the warmth of the sunlight that comes to caress the flower. I am the flower that receives the sunlight. I am this body-mind arising and passing away. I am the quality of awareness that I choose now." For there is only God, only the truth can be true, and the truth sets all things free. For if truth is given only to humankind, but not to a blade of grass, the blade of grass remains imprisoned. But the truth that sets all things free does so because all things are the truth. This is why when you encounter anyone, it is indeed a holy encounter. Holy means wholeness. In wholeness there is only one. I hope you are beginning to see how simple it really is. Each moment of relationship is holy, not because the mind decides to hold the thought, "Well, I heard this was holy, I guess I'd better be a nice person." No, that is egoic thinking, and the ego is the dream of separation. Who is dreaming the dream? You are, and you are God. Each relationship or each moment is a holy encounter, because there is only wholeness showing up as the one thing. Existence is not really two beings coming together and having an experience. There is only the one thing, which is the experience itself. Do you know that all along you have never forgotten me for a moment? That is, in any moment of true perception, true, clear, immediate perception, you have been unaware of the thought of an I having this experience. There is just the experience itself. It arises innocently. It arises uncaused. There is no judgment about it. There is just experience. Then in the next millisecond, the next slight moment, you create the thought, "Oh, I am having this experience, and it's with that separate being over there." You have merely elected to use the power of God consciousness to identify that another body-mind is something separate from you. You are the creator of the game. You are the player in the game. You are the result and consequence of the game. You are the end of the game, and you are that in which all games disappear as though they had never been. Beloved friends, look around you. This means the world is not outside of you at all. It is you. You are playing a game. That game is going to take this very planet into a transfiguration in light, and you will all be transformed in the twinkling of an eye. Well, of course you will be. You are God making up the game. That is all that is going on. That is all that has ever been going on. There is only that which I am. There is only that which I am. I am indeed the perfect impersonal I. I am the creator of all things, the sustainer of all things, the destroyer of all things. There has never been a separate I where you are. There has only been me showing up as you. You are perfect and whole, and you are innocent. You have never failed, and you have never sinned. How could these things be, that I have spoken to you time and time again as Jeshua ben Joseph, unless you are already whole? And wholeness is God. You are it. You are the destination of all you are seeking. In the beginning, the mind, which is me, which is God pretending to be separate, plays itself out and tries to make itself be as separate as it thinks it can be. But separation never succeeds. The first step in the awakening process is to hear the Word. You will hear the Word when you decide as God to have the experience of being awakened into the truth. Everyone reading these words has indeed heard the Word, and the Word will be given unto you in the form that you choose. Everyone reading this way of mastery chose to hear the Word through me, as Jeshua ben Joseph. That vibration received by you set on your course toward perfect remembrance and enlightenment. You are the one that created the drama of the crucifixion. You are the one that set in motion the return of Jeshua ben Joseph as the primary teacher in this world. Why? Because you are that one that has decreed that it is this context in which you will give yourself permission to edge ever closer to the reality that the whole thing is God and you are that. What has been playing out then for the past 33 lessons, and even longer than that, indeed been playing out for 2,000 years, is your creation. It is the game of God, remembering God through the guise of God's creation. As you come then to accept a Savior or a teacher or a teaching, that is a stage in the awakening process, and when you decide to release your grip of fear a little deeper, you begin to have what are called mystical experiences. You begin to realize that you can be aware of someone else not in the room with you physically. You can begin to have a unique and extraordinary experience of communicating with beings that do not have bodies. And oh my goodness, it all looks to be so incredible, yet even that is but a stage of the journey. Opening the door to the temple of heaven. As the mind becomes more and more transparent to itself, the more it is simply choosing to release illusion and abide in reality. It must come to the door of the temple of heaven. It must open that door, which is to release any final sense of being outside the sanctuary of truth. It must come to bask in the light that flows from the source and essence of all it is. The separate seeker, the one who would know God, realizes that they already know God perfectly, and that they have indeed been God, seeking God, for the enjoyment of finding and knowing God again. Yes, that is your challenge now. Would you be willing to simply be God? Do you know what that requires? Absolutely nothing. How then do you show up as God? If you are thirsty, drink your water. If it is cold, put a sweater on. If you want to make love, make love. If you want to sleep, sleep. There is no difficulty in this. The only practice is to be that which you are, and you are the light of the world. How many times have you heard me say that to you? Be that which you are, and you are the light of the world. You've heard the words and said, oh, now, if I could only be who I am, then I'd be the light of the world. But I'm not being who I am, so I must be the darkness of the world. But the whole time you are indeed being who you are. You are the light that lights the world, for in being whatever you have chosen to be at any moment, you are that which generates awareness of experience. And that is all that we are as the mind of God, that which generates experience. For experience is the extension of creation. You have not failed in separating yourself from self. You have not succeeded in shaking the hand off of your own arm. The joke has been on you because you wanted to be joked. In each moment of your existence, you have been the perfect expression of God. Even in the moments of your deepest so-called suffering, when you believed that everybody else had it and you did not. When you perceived yourself as being light years from knowing God, you were the very power of God creating that perception. You are also that one who has dared to be bold enough to allow Shanti Cristo into your life, a rather radical organization. You created it as the context for your awakening, and you are free to use that context, that organization, to enlighten the entire planet if you want to. You are also free to let it crumble into the ancient echo of memory. There is only God, and you are that. God extends creation without ceasing. You will, therefore, always continue to exist as the one who creates experience. This is why there is only one question worth asking. What do I truly want? For you will experience the answer to that question. In fact, your experience is the answer to the question. You can lay in bed with the flu and ask yourself the question, what do I truly want? Well, as body-mind has the flu, I am experiencing exactly what I have wanted. And you can embrace it and love it, and see it as perfectly innocent because that is the truth of it. Having the flu is not a sign of failure. The death of the body is not a sign of failure. It is just what is arising as the extension of creation. So the final and greatest truth that can be told sounds like complete nonsense. It is unacceptable to the egoic mind that wants the power of making the false, separate self all-powerful and invincible, standing against the world. In other words, the gnat shouting at the universe. For the mind that is awakened to the reality of God allows all things, trusts all things, embraces all things, transcends all things, and sees the shimmering perfection literally showing up as all things. You are perfectly free in every moment. Nothing can imprison God. If you choose to leave a relationship, you are merely using the complete freedom of God to generate experience. If you choose to stay in a relationship, you are merely using the freedom of God to generate experience. Neither is right, neither is wrong. Both options are totally free and uncaused, and each expresses God. It is indeed time to give up perceiving some things as being more perfect than others. There is only God. There has only been God. There will always be only God. When a wave is cast up out of the ocean, it does not lose its wetness. And who would say that this wave is better than that wave? Yet I say unto you that mind that chooses one wave over the other is the mind of God creating creation. For in the very moment when one wave is chosen as having greater value, experience has been had. And experience is the extension of creation. You, therefore, are a creator, and you create without ceasing. You remain today exactly as you were when you were created by the Self. You remain free to create whatever you want to perceive, and you do it from within the mind, and you extend it out. You radiate it out with every thought you think. When an enlightened master shows up on the planet, it is simply that God has given up playing the game of the separate self through that body-mind. That is all. An enlightened mind realizes that there is only God, and that in that freedom, it is free to show up as the body-mind in whatever may it wants while the body-mind lasts. Whether it shows up with saffron robes or beggars' worn-out clothing makes no difference. An enlightened mind is an enlightened mind. It might smoke a cigarette. It might drink carrot juice. It becomes irrelevant. And the one smoking the cigarette looks at the one drinking the carrot juice and smiles. The one drinking the carrot juice looks at the one smoking the cigarette and smiles. And in that smile, there is only the one beholding the one. You then are free to be at peace. You are free to release all judgment. You are indeed free to give yourself the exquisite experience of being the one who allows all things. You are the one who is free to embrace the innocence of each moment. You are the one who is free to require sunglasses against the morning sunrise. You are the one who is free to be free. And to be free is to be authentic. And to be authentic is to demonstrate the reality that only God exists. There is only God, though it seems that you are receiving information outside of yourself, yet I say unto you, you have received information only from yourself, God. Only the mind of God exists, and you are God choosing to remember that you are God. If you would go back and read the Jeshua letters, not all of those communications were from the perspective of Jeshua ben Joseph. There were also direct communications from the mind of God, given as clear and obvious signs unto you. Things were said even in that book that reveal the truth that there is only God. If you looked past it and did not see it, it is because you still thought it would be too fearful for you to know the truth that set you free. You need to perceive there was an individual who had an experience opening to Jeshua ben Joseph as you were receiving information through the medium of a channel. And yet I say unto you, you have received information only from yourself, God. This is why all giving is receiving. This is why loss is not possible, and why death does not exist. God can only dissolve into God. And in that realization, the final step, beyond even the way of knowing, is to release resistance to creation itself, and learn to show up as God in individuated form, to have a good time, to love, to create, to extend. Therefore, indeed, beloved friends, our love will be without ceasing. Our creativity will be without ceasing, for we are the one showing up as creation for the joy of the dance. There is nothing but this. There is nothing above or below, nothing behind or ahead. You are indeed that one now. And if you rest upon your couch with eyes closed, who is doing the resting? Whose eyes are closed? In this lesson I have given unto you the very rock bottom, most fundamental core that you can now sit with, or dance with if you wish. You can take it to bed with you. You can have a cup of coffee with it. You can strive to understand it. You can analyze it, saying, well, there must be some message here. This must be metaphor somehow. Or you can simply give up being identified as a separate self, still struggling to know the truth. In A Course of Miracles I said unto you, holy relationship is when any two have looked within and found no lack, and therefore chose to join to create, to make happy. If any two have looked within and found no lack, they have seen that there is only God. Who cares whether this body-mind goes there or this or goes over there? It's all the same. Where do you feel like playing? That is all. And when you see your brother or sister say, I am moving from this location to that location, the awakened mind said, oh, this is part of myself wanting to go live in Cleveland now, perfectly fine. For the enlightened mind gives perfect freedom to all beings because it sees that the expression of all beings is the freedom of itself, of the one mind, which is God, showing up as the being who would rather take the body mind to Cleveland instead of living in Florida. When the lover awakens at 3 a.m. and said, I now need to move to a monastery and live in perfect silence in a solitary cell, I will never see you again. The totally enlightened mind receives that and smiles, for that enlightened mind knows that the lover can never truly leave because separation is unreal. Therefore the enlightened mind allows all things, trusts all things, embraces all things, and transcends all things. There is only God, and you are that. You are as I am. The only question left then is, who do you want to play with? Who do you want to play with, knowers of God or knowers of fear? They are all God, and yet in that play and display of creation, you are free to decide who you will play with, who you will dance with, who you will create with, and what you will create. As any mind awakens to itself as God, it becomes more and more interested only in being with others who are like-minded. It can no longer tolerate unenlightenment. Why? Because it is not as much fun, it is not as loving, and God is but love. Therefore, beloved friends, review well what has been shared with you in this lesson. If you have been noticing quite a shift has just occurred, the cat is out of the bag. For Jeshua ben Joseph has been but a disguise chosen of me to present myself to you because you have required it. Indeed, beloved friends, be at peace always. Let us play together as that one mind, extending creation without end, inviting aspects of ourself back to ourself. Only love is real. Only love exists. Only love is worthy of love. And God wants only that which extends the good, the holy, and the beautiful. Therefore, indeed, peace be with you always. For in truth, where could it go? Know I am with you always. Amen.